Hello, hey y'all, welcome back. It's been a minute. It's been a little minute. Um, my name is Tamika. Thank you for coming to my YouTube channel and reading the Bible with me, and even looking at some of my other stuff that I have going on with my life here. But on this episode, we are reading the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, and we are in Leviticus chapter 11 now. So we recap. So let's recap. And I'm gonna do a lot of reading from our chapter 9 and chapter 10, our little commentary that they have at the bottom of this book, because it is wonderful. We are reading from the Life Application Study Bible. Very good, interesting, helping you study Bible. Definitely makes a lot of stuff clear to me. So, the priests have begun to do their work. They did all that was required, and God was pleased. But in chapter 10, Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, put coals of fire in their incense burners and sprinkled incense over them. And this was not how it was intended, and it did not please God, for they disobeyed the Lord's way to do the offering and what the purpose was for it. And God sent fire and burned them up, and they died right there before the Lord. And in parentheses, I put, thank you for grace and mercy. Thank you, Lord, so much for grace and mercy. And it says read pages 226. And I'm going to read everything that I kind of had highlighted there. So hold on one second. We're on 226. And started at chapter 9, verse 24. It says, a display of his mighty power. God sent fire to consume Aaron's offering. The Israelites fell to the ground in awe. Today, some people wonder if God really exists because they don't see his activity in the world, his activity in the world. But God is at work in today's world, just as he was in Moses' world. God displays his power in a variety of ways, sometimes most effectively through the body of believers, which he is using to change the world. When you begin to see acts of love and faith that only God's Spirit could empower, you will realize that these things are just as supernatural as God's mighty physical acts. And not saying even to just in my reading that, I feel like God is very patient. He's much more patient than he was back then. He still is God, but he has like I said, that grace and mercy goes a long way. He loves us all, and he wants us to do great, and he wants us to be great, and to spread his love, and for all to go to heaven with him and be living forever for him, with and for him. What was wrong with the kind of fire that Nadab and Abihu offered before the Lord? The nature of Nadab and Abihu's wrongdoing is debated, but it is clearly involved of the burning of the incense. The wrong kind of fire could have translated foreign fire as in Psalms 44 and 20 and 81 and 9, meaning unholy. See Exodus 30 and 9. Or even pagan. Apparently, Nadab and Abihu used fire from a source not approved by God. Numbers 3, 4, 26, and 61. Possibly even a pagan source. It has also been suggested that the two priests gave an offering at an unprescribed time. Whatever the explanation, the point is that Nadab and Abihu abused their office as priests in a flagrant act of disrespect to God, who had just reviewed with them precisely how they were to conduct worship. As leaders, they had a special responsibility to obey God in their position. They could easily lead many people astray. If God has commissioned you to lead or teach others, never take the role for granted or abuse it. Stay faithful to God and follow his instructions. Aaron's sons were careless about following the laws of the sacrifice. In response, God destroyed them with a blast of fire. Performing the sacrifices was an act of obedience. Doing them correctly showed respect for God. It is easy for us to grow careless about obeying God, to live our way instead of God's way. But if one way were just as good as the another, God would have commanded us to live his way. Oh, God would not have commanded us to live his way. Let me read it again. It is easy for us to grow careless about obeying God, to live our way instead of God's way. But if one way were just as good as another, God would not have commanded us to live his way. He always has good reasons for his commands, and we always place ourselves in danger when we consciously or carelessly disobey him. And I'm going to take a pause right there too. Thinking about that and hearing that too, I was watching a pastor one time talking about, how, the big question is, people always say, why would God do something like that? And, saying that's not a loving God and this and that and this. But God is our Father, okay? And we are his children, all right? So in perspective, I put that in the fact of when we stay in our parents' house. We grew up saying, hearing our parents say, you're going to obey the rules of my house, or you can leave and go get your own place and do whatever you want to do. And so pretty much that's how it is. He gives us that free will, just like we give our kids that free will. Well, some of us give our kids that free will to, be themselves, do themselves or whatever, but we still tell them, hey, if it's something wrong, we still say, hey, that's not the right thing to do. Or, we don't, if we see somebody about to walk off a cliff, we're not just going to sit there and watch. We're going to warn them. We're going to say, hey, that's not good, so, to me, that's how God is with us too, But the priests were not to drink wine or other alcoholic beverages before going into the tabernacle. If they drank too much, and their senses were dulled by alcohol, they might repeat Nadab and Abihu's sin and bring something unholy into the worship ceremony. In addition, drinking before performing your priestly duties would disqualify them from teaching the people God's requirements of self-discipline. Also, drunkenness in religious context was associated with pagan practices, and the Hebrew priests were supposed to be distinctively different. And then my last little part for that was the priest who offered the sin offering was supposed to eat a portion of the animal and then burn the rest. Moses was angry because Eleazar and Ithamar, who took the place of the two sons that, who was Aaron's other two sons that took the place of the ones that God killed and, burned up. They took the place of him, and Moses got mad at them because they burned the sin offering but didn't eat any of it. They burned it all up. And Aaron explained to Moses that his two sons did not feel it appropriate to eat the sacrifice after their two brothers, Nadab and Abihu, had just been killed for sacrificing wrongly. And Moses understood that Eleazar and Ithamar were not trying to disobey God. They were simply afraid and upset over what had happened to their brothers. Okay, so pretty interesting 2 chapters, right? This whole book is interesting, and we're gonna read this thing, right? We're gonna read it. All right, so we in chapter 11, and we're probably just only gonna get through 11 today, but it says, number 11, clean and unclean animals. Then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. Of all the land animals, these are the ones you may use for food. You may not eat any animal that has completely split hooves and chews the cud. You may not, however, eat the following animals that have split hooves or that chew the cud, but not both. The camel chews the cud, but does not have split hooves, so it is ceremonially unclean for you. The hyrax chews the cud, but does not have split hooves, so it is unclean. The hare chews the cud, but does not have split hooves, so it's unclean. The pig evenly split hooves, but does not chew the cud, so it is unclean. You may not eat the meat of these animals or even touch their carcasses. They are ceremonially unclean for you. Of all the marine animals, these are the ones you may use for food. You may eat anything from the water if it has both fins and scales, whether taken from salt water or from streams. But you must not ever eat animals from the sea or from the rivers that do not have both fins and scales. They are detestable to you. This applies both to little creatures that live in shallow waters and to all creatures that live in the deep water. They will always be detestable to you. You will never eat that meat or even touch their dead bodies. Any marine animal that does not have both fins and scales is detestable to you. These are the birds that are detestable to you. You must never eat them: the griffin vulture, the bearded vulture, the black vulture, the kite, falcons, all kinds of ravens, falcons of all kinds, ravens of all kinds, the eagle owl, the short-eared owl, the barn owl, the seagull, the hawks of all kinds, the little owl, the cormorant, the great owl, the barn owl, the desert owl, the Egyptian vulture, the stork, herons of all kinds, the hoopoe, and the bat. You must not eat winged insects that walk around along the ground. They are detestable to you. You may, however, eat winged insects that walk along the ground and have jointed legs so they can jump. The insects you were permitted to eat include all kinds of locusts, bald locusts, crickets, and grasshoppers. All other winged insects that walk along the ground are detestable to you. The following creatures will make you ceremonially unclean. If any of you touch their carcasses, you will be defiled until evening. If you picked up their carcasses, you must wash your clothes, and you will remain defiled until evening. Any animal that has split hooves that are not evenly divided or that does not chew the cud is unclean to you. If you touch the carcass of such an animal, you are defiled. Of the animals that walk on all fours, those that have paws are unclean. If you touch the carcass of such an animal, you will be defiled until evening. If you pick up its carcass, you must wash your clothes, and you will remain defiled until evening. These animals are unclean to you. Of the small animals that scurry along the ground, these are unclean for you: the mole rat, the rat, large lizards of any kind, the gecko, the monitor lizard, the common lizard, the sand lizard, and the chameleon. All these small animals are unclean to you. If any of you touch the dead body of such an animal, you will be defiled until evening. If such an animal dies and falls on something, that object will be unclean. This is true whether the object is made of wood, cloth, leather, or burlap. Whatever its use, you must dip it in water, and it will remain defiled until evening. After that, it will be ceremonially clean and may be used again. If such an animal falls into a clay pot, everything in the pot will be defiled, and the pot must be smashed. If the water from such a container spills on any food, the food will be defiled, and any beverage in such a container will be defiled. Any object on which the carcass of such an animal falls will be defiled. If it is an oven or hearth, it must be destroyed, for it is defiled, and you must treat it accordingly. However, if the carcass of such an animal falls into a spring or a cistern, the water will still be clean. But anyone who touches the carcass will be defiled. If the carcass falls on the seed grain and to be planted in the field, the seed will still be considered clean. But if the seed is wet when the carcass falls on it, the seed will be defiled. If an animal you are permitted to eat dies and you touch its carcass, you will be defiled until evening. If you eat any of its meat or carry away its carcass, you must wash your clothes and you will remain defiled until evening. All small animals that scurry along the ground are detestable and you may never eat them. This includes all the animals that slither on their bellies, as well as those with 4 legs and those with many feet. All such animals that scurry along the ground are detestable, and you must never eat them. Do not defile yourselves by touching them. You must not make yourselves ceremonially unclean because of them. For I am the Lord your God. You must consecrate yourselves and be holy because I am holy. So do not defile yourselves with any of these small animals that scurry along the ground. For I, the Lord, am the one who brought you from the land of Egypt, that I might be your God. Therefore, you must be holy because I am holy. These are the instructions regarding land animals, birds, marine creatures, and animals that scurry along the ground. By these instructions, you will know what is clean and what is unclean, and which animals may be eaten and which may not be eaten. Okay, so we had some rules for eatery, right? Instructions. I hope that you are enjoying these stories and learning the Word of God. I definitely am. It's very interesting. And we will be getting into some more later. Y'all like my little ponytails? Boop, boop, boop. My hair is just growing. I think I'm going to let it grow for a little while. But I will see you next go round. Okay. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, reading the Bible with me. Continue to support, like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, tell everybody. And let's read the Bible from beginning to end, from Genesis to Revelation. Okay? I hope you have a great evening, a great night. Don't forget, if you're watching this tonight, time falls back an hour. So, have a great rest of the weekend. You see, I'm already tired. And have a good one. Thank you so much. Bye.